Hey everybody, I'm Barry Schwartz and we're live with Search Engine Land right now. This is our first ever time doing this and I'm really excited to have our special guest with us. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's working from home. And I like to go through people we have on the phone in no specific order outside of what's showing up on my screen. Let's start with Alexis Sanders. Alexis, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis Sanders. I'm a senior account manager at Merkle and excited to talk with everybody here today.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Daniel Waisberg, could you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Daniel Waisberg. I'm a search advocate at Google, and I'm based in the Tel Aviv office. So right now I'm in Israel and really excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for coming here. Lily Ray, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Lily Ray. I'm the director of SEO at Path Interactive in New York City. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. And Pedro Dias, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi there, I'm Pedro Dias. I'm the SEO director at Apis 3 here in Brazil. And thank you for having me in this hangout.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I appreciate it. I don't think I missed anybody on this call, as far as I can tell. And we are all working from our respective homes across the world. We didn't say where we are. Some of us said where we are. So I'm in a suburb in New York, about 45 minutes outside of New York City. Lily's in the heart of New York City right now. Daniel is in Tel Aviv area. Pedro, you're in Brazil?
Yes, in São Paulo.
And Alexis, you're in?
Pittsburgh.
Okay. So we're all over the place, all working over live internet streams. And I hear that in Zurich, they are slowing down the Google stream. Maybe not. In any event, so I just want to check in with everybody. How's everybody doing? How's everybody managing? Anybody have some cool stories to share? No. I know, Dan, do you go for long walks, you say?
Yeah, so I've been home for 10 days and it's been not so bad. So just we can still walk around, which is nice. So I've just been walking around. I'm trying to do some exercise at home. I think that's really important for people in general. I think that's really critical for, to keep moving even when you're home. And just reading a lot and working quite a lot. I guess, I don't know if everyone's feeling the same, but just when you're working at home all the time and you don't have that many distractions, you can't go out all the time. So it's just like the barriers are kind of harder and it's just like you're bored and, why not do some work? I have this thing to do. And then, so that's kind of how it's been for me. It's kind of blurring the like weekdays. I not always remember what day is it, but
It's only been 10 days, Daniel. Oh my God.
I know.
You're like, it's day 10. The days are blurring together. Everything's work. What is work? What is personal life? It's 9 a.m. Why I've been walking for 2 hours?
No, I feel the same. It's really hard. So I've been trying to break up my days by when the formal work day ends here, which is about 6:30 in New York. I force myself to stop and go outside and go on a run or go on a walk because we're still allowed to do that in New York, at least for now. But what's interesting is the gyms are closed. And so people here love working out so much that everyone has the exact same idea. So we all go outside and we all start running and we all eventually run to the running track where it's thousands of people running on the running track, trying to avoid each other by 6 feet. So it's totally defeats the whole purpose. But try to get outside every day.
That's good.
It's cool.
Alexis, are you getting out?
Outside? Well,
Yeah.
mostly in Animal Crossing, New Horizons, I've been getting out lately. I mean, I'd like to lie to everybody and say that I've been walking and doing a lot of working out, but this weekend I probably played 32 hours of that game. I don't know why. It's it has this addicting quality, and because my vacation to Disney World was canceled with my family, I feel like my niece is 5, so we were gonna go. So that was canceled. It feels though this video game is a little island getaway, you gotta go around and catch bugs. It's probably made for 10-year-olds, but very relaxing.
Sorry to hear it was canceled. I actually just went to Disney World. What's in Florida? Which one's Florida?
Disney World. Yep.
Disney World, the kids this, I guess January. So anyway, or I'm being told the link's not working for the live stream. I think the team is working on it now. Otherwise, this is being recorded anyway, and you could consume it after the fact. So keep submitting your questions if you do happen to have the stream working. Pedro, are you getting out at all, or you're not? You're staying inside?
I'm trying to stay inside as much as I can. We let go everyone home since the 13th. So I'm kind of home since then. Like this is going to be the 11th day that I'm home. My wife works in a consulate here in Brazil, so and she doesn't drive that much. So she often asks me to go and get her when she gets out late. And the consulate didn't close because she has to take care of stranded people that are here and to go to their country where her consulate is from. So yeah, that's occasionally I drive, so that's it. But I don't get out of the car or anything.
Is it a very crowded area where you can't get out of the car?
Yeah, well, it's not a pedestrian-friendly area, so you have to drive almost everywhere here, except in the center of here in the neighborhood. But where she works, you have to kind of drive there.
Okay. All right, everybody, be safe. All right, so let's go on to the next topic. So you saw, Pedro, you said you started like isolating back in on the 13th. Daniel, when did you guys stop going to the Google office?
I think the last day was not this Monday, the previous Wednesday, sorry, previous Wednesday. I don't remember the date, but like 10 days ago, probably 13 or something.
Okay, and Lily?
Yeah, it's about the same. I think maybe the 11th or so. So about 10 days.
Oh.
Okay, and Alexis?
Yeah, probably about the same. We've like a pretty heavy work from home culture. So we've been working from home a lot in February and March, but like officially probably about the 13th.
Yeah, I think the last, I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to do because on the 11th was the last time I was in the office all day, and most people weren't there anyway. I have a small office. I have about 15 people there, and only 4 people showed up on that date. We're very easy to work from home as well, but I still have to get the mail so I could deposit checks, so I could do payroll if people happen to mail checks to my office.
My mom was talking about that too, how she's like really nervous because she always uses checks because credit cards charge like a huge fee for her. So yeah.
So I'm not really sure what's going to happen there, but it should be interesting. But you know, whatever. It's we'll learn as we go on. So it's nice to see you guys are coping okay on this. Some of you work at agencies. I don't know if you have anything to say around this, but a lot of people are asking how you're helping your clients get through this situation. I'm sure a lot of clients have a lot of questions. Maybe some are pulling budgets and so forth. So can anybody share some stories about, without really revealing names of clients, about how you're helping your clients get through this time?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because we have approximately like 90 clients on my SEO team. And so for some of them, obviously this has been devastating. Like it totally depends on the business model and the industry. Some of them have had to shut their doors, and that's just awful all around. And others are seeing like surges in traffic and demand. So it's kind of random. But we're trying to keep a level head and just act as like advisors to our clients, help them figure out ways that they can continue to make money in the interim if needed. So a lot of our clients are like shifting to an online model or live streaming, or like, you know, if they meet with their customers, we're helping them get set up in a way that they can do that on video. But for other clients, a lot of it is just like, okay, let's figure out our game plan. You know, SEO is a long-term game anyway. So let's just think about what the next 3, 6, 9 months are going to look like with this new landscape and these new challenges. But yeah, really just trying to not be too like impetuous, I think, is really important right now.
Definitely. And to echo what Lily said there, this situation is so unprecedented. I mean, it hasn't happened since like the Spanish flu back in like the early 1900s. So we really have no data to operate off of. So it's a lot of learning as we go. And Lily mentioned that there's a bunch of different industries. I have some data that we can talk about a little bit later from varying industries. And the range is enormous, from spikes of 433% growth in year-over-year traffic to drops of over 56%, to where we actually have a great example of a hotel conglomerate that their revenue from bookings is 1/10 of what it usually would be. So, travel is going to suffer. There are certain industries that are going to struggle, but there are other industries that are going to do well. So it's kind of like depends on the need in a pandemic, how well a company is doing and performing.
Here's pretty much the same. I guess some clients have harder time figuring out how they can adapt to this online version of their business, because for example, I have car manufacturer clients that finally they found that people don't buy cars online, like except for Tesla. But here in Brazil, it's very seldom that people buy cars online. So we are trying to kind of find ways with them, because they are like, okay, clients might not buy a car, but they can buy parts of your car. So the parts store still works, and the car part doesn't work as well. So we are kind of advising and trying to figure out with clients which parts of their business they can push it to work, and which basically are not gonna get any traction anytime soon. And obviously there are verticals that are more affected than others. I see like restaurants or event companies that are like at this point are like their business is almost zero, and it's really tough to deal with this. So we are trying more to act like mentors, and rather than kind of push any work, or I mean we are just trying to navigate this with them and lend our knowledge as much as we can. And since we always position ourselves as a consultancy more than an agency, we try to be side by side with them and kind of guide them in the best direction, trying to figure out, and sometimes extrapolating what we do beyond areas of the company. Like, okay, maybe this SEO area can help this other client that, although they don't have an SEO contract with us, but there is knowledge that can transpire to them and can help them.
So there's an interesting question that a user submitted. Basically about any advice you would have on getting SEO changes pushed through in a company with office politics in this time. So we know that we need to invest in the site. We keep getting freaking internal roadblocks. Any advice on how to try to convince people to go through that and get those things answered?
I think context is important to this question, because sometimes in a crisis like this, you have to realize that other teams and other things may be a priority. So making sure that if you really, really need to get something done, that you make that known and you escalate that properly, but also understand that, the team can only do so much in a day. And so if there are other things that really, really need to get done and other things that need to be prioritized, that, maybe this initiative is meant for the back burner. Maybe it can be done in June and doesn't have to be done today. I think that's going to be part of planning, and there may be some sacrifice from all teams because we have less ability to get as much work done as we probably could have if everybody was in the office and available and we were full resources.
Right. And a similar question is, if a company's traffic did get hit heavily because of the COVID-19 outbreak, what would you suggest those companies focus on in terms of their SEO efforts? If they have the budget, if they're willing to go all in, what's the next 3 months of SEO budget that they should be focused on?
Yeah, I think this is context too, and definitely anybody jump into if you have any thoughts here. But if you're not involved in anything related to the COVID-19 crisis, either one, you can company-wide find a way to be involved. There are a lot of companies out there that have done really great things in terms of their manufacturing. For instance, like Christian Siriano, who's a fashion designer, has his designers working from home making masks or something. And that's in some ways a great way to help out with the cause, and in other ways like a good PR move, because you're not really doing anything that's as effective with that use of everyone's time. The other play here is to, if you're not going to do that or you're not able to, really focus in on your site, things that need to be done, keep with the prioritized list, and try to do any sort of cleanup initiatives that you can do. That's what I would suggest.
Those are great points. I also think that search behaviors are going to change drastically. Like the last 2 weeks aren't necessarily indicative of what we're going to see over the next like 6 months, for example. So people being at home more often is already changing their behavior in terms of what they're searching for, how they're searching. We have a couple publisher clients where they're seeing really big increases, even though their content has virtually nothing to do with coronavirus in general or health epidemics or anything like that. But just because people are searching in different ways. So like natural medicine is an example, or like DIY products are seeing really big changes in demand where people are like, can I make hand sanitizer from home? Or can I make natural cleaning products? Or like spending more time with their pets or with their kids. So I think there's going to be some ways to tap into like changes in search behavior. So maybe thinking about like what your product or service can do in the next few months, just given how people's behaviors are going to change.
I love that.
Yeah, could maybe Pedro, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but have any of your clients like cut any budgets because of this, or?
Some, they haven't cut any budgets. Some have reduced budgets. We have a client in the sports vertical, and since there are no sports events happening and many sports stores closed down shop, so they decided like, okay, we are going to just pause because there is no interest in us. And that's the point. It's like, if there is no interest whatsoever in your vertical, I mean, the best you can do is look inside and try to reorganize your company and help your customers in the best way you can. There's no way to make business when there is no demand. We can look ahead and envision a suppressed demand down the road, because there's going to be a suppressed demand for many things that we are not selling at the moment. We have to envision what's going to come ahead. People are wanting to make up for what they didn't do for the 3 months that they have been at home. So you have to account for that, and that's a good exercise. Maybe prepare yourself for that. Maybe help do some more peer helping rather than look for business opportunities when in those verticals there is no interest at the moment, unless you are selling alcohol gel or masks or whatever. There is no interest in your vertical.
Yeah, and I know Alexis, you posted like a chart showing the click growth rate from March 10th to, I guess, just a couple of days ago, and which categories of, I guess, industries have been impacted either in a positive way or a negative way. Do you want to, I guess you should share it since you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know the best way to go through this without like a visual, but maybe we can, do you want to screen share? Can I do that?
Probably. Yeah, try it.
And let me throw this into like a Word doc, because I think that would be a little bit easier. Yeah, so looking at the traffic, when looking at the spikes in terms of clicks coming from GSC, represent Daniel, one of the things that we noticed was that the spike in traffic for at least a lot of our clients started around the 10th of March in the US, which is about the time that Trump had his first address. Right, ready to share screens. So we took that up until the day that we had, which was up until the 21st. And we looked at the growth rate year over year. And just let me know if you guys can see this. Hopefully you can't see my full screen.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So went through the data and pulled in some different metrics that I thought was interesting for everyone. And thank goodness we can screen share, because I feel like it would be hard to go through this. But as you can see, there's a lot of variety here in terms of what businesses are growing and which ones are falling. So you can see with things that are very essential to people surviving in a work from home type world, like groceries, they're seeing massive lifts in those performance for those about 11 days year over year, significant. Large pharmaceuticals as well, significant growth, around 175.6%. Online messaging too, so things where people are, I guess, going back to some of the things that we mentioned earlier about days blurring together and people working more, like productivity tool. We have a productivity tool client whose traffic is up almost 150%. So kind of interesting. And then I also thought this was kind of cool too. So insurance was slightly up. A lot of this, when I looked into it, was related to brand. So maybe with uncertainty, being around your families more often, people are thinking about that type of thing. When we look at other industries who maybe are less essential and for people being stuck at home and in self-quarantine, like hotels, novelty retailers, theme parks, online discount for local activities, very typical mall retailers for clothes and goods, we're seeing some decreases in the traffic that's coming to their website. What's actually super interesting though, is that if we look at the decrease to clicks for this hotel conglomerate, it actually turns out that bookings are 1/10 of what they usually are per day. So, the impact to the business is a lot more substantial than I think the clicks would let us see. So making sure that when you check your metrics, you're looking at the bottom line as much as possible. It's important. But, and we also have a hospital which is up 6%. And right now about 3% of its traffic is related to coronavirus. So kind of interesting, just some thoughts. And you can see that when we mentioned earlier that there's a lot of fluctuation and that we say that not every company is going to be having the same challenges. Like this is why, because people need different things at different times. And right now people need things to help them in self-quarantine.
Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily mean that if, let's say, you have a large grocery retailer, that they're going to want to do more advertising, right?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I would assume not. And I think it's going to be different too, based on what actually people want to be accomplished. I mean, right now for groceries, the biggest push is probably something along the lines of like, we have enough food, buy what you need, don't buy enough toilet paper to like that other people can't have any, that type of messaging. Whereas someone like Grubhub is like, hey, like we are supporting local businesses. So we're doing delivery and we're taking out like our fee that we have, and that's going to help the economy in so many ways and help these local businesses. So it's going to be 100% different in the push marketing across the board. I know that one of the things that we've been thinking a lot about with financial institutions and with insurers is that you don't want to seem insensitive in a time like this. Like this is very serious and you don't want to seem like you're taking advantage of the situation or people or expectations. So, making sure to review messaging for any of the push marketing that you have and any of the content on your site to make sure that, it's suitable and on point considering the situation. Yeah.
It's fun. It's interesting because a lot of the people I speak to on Twitter and the SEO community seem to be extremely busy. Maybe it's just because it's just happening now. Or maybe their clients need a lot of discussion and they need a lot of hand-holding. But if business does slow down, because there probably will be a recession, there's a question here is, what can SEOs do to stay sharp and continue learning during this time? And one way, I guess, is Daniel's on this video, and he's been doing a lot of these cool Search Console related videos. Can you tell people a little bit about the Google Webmaster channel and what you're doing there a little bit, maybe?
Sure. So, well, I've been, all of us in the team, so me, John, Martin, we have been doing a lot of videos lately, and it's a lot of work. It's really, but we do feel that it helps a lot. So we do analyze the data quite often to see what we can do better, what kind of content we want to produce, and this kind of stuff. And well, right now it's a little bit more difficult for us to record because we actually record in a studio and all the offices, they're closed. So we are looking into options. We have a few options right now. We are kind of working through them, and but yeah, I mean,
but there's a lot of content. There's a lot of content on the YouTube video, on the YouTube channel. There's tons and tons of content on the blog. So Google's constantly producing new stuff, and there's tons of old stuff that are probably still very evergreen. So there's lots of ways to learn directly from the horse's mouth, Google, and definitely spend some time there if you do have some time that you want to educate yourself.
Yeah.
I guess then, Pedro, I know you're also making videos. So are you gonna cut those a little bit, or are you gonna do them from home?
Yeah, I have my gear at the office, so I have to go down to the office and get it. I only brought my laptop, and I didn't think it through when I brought the things here. Hopefully the office is kind of close where I live, like 800 meters in metric units. So I can just walk there and get my gear. Probably I'll bring an extra monitor as well, because I don't have anything at home to work from. I used to separate really well work from home stuff, and I didn't bring, except my laptop, I didn't bring anything home. And now I think I'll have to go down and bring a few things. But yes, I'm gonna probably take it up and do some videos.
Yeah.
To the channel.
Last Wednesday, I went to the office to get the mail, and I brought home my video equipment. Not much more. I should have brought back an extra monitor. I didn't really think about that, but I have an extra one in the house, so not so good. But it is what it is. I think it's pretty safe to, if nobody's in the building and you could drive there or whatever, it's probably pretty safe to go get it, but I'm not a doctor, so.
Yeah,
here
the building just restricted the hours that you can enter, so you can only enter between 9:30 and 4. So out of those times, you cannot go there. So, out of that.
And Lily, I think you're doing some like these night like SEO group discussions and so forth.
Oh yeah, I've been doing a lot of different things. I mean, what's interesting is you mentioned like people in the SEO industry are really busy as of the last couple of weeks, and I definitely feel that. And I think one thing that's happening is everyone's trying to help. Everyone's trying to continue to provide information and strategy, and a lot of the conferences obviously had to get canceled, which is extremely unfortunate. But people are trying to make up for it with like video and socializing online. And so I've been doing just some casual, like, have a glass of wine and hang out on Zoom at night with friends and people in the industry, which is fun. But it's going to be interesting to see over the next few months. Like, I know a lot of the conferences have already like gone digital, or they're getting the infrastructure to be able to go digital. But it'll be interesting to see like how the SEO audience out there responds to that, and if there's as much of a demand for online as there is for the conferences, because being in person has its own value, kind of being around other people. But we're all going to have to kind of change our behaviors and how we consume information and how we provide information over the next couple of months. So it'll be really interesting to see, like, is there as much interest and as much demand for consuming the amount of content that we're all kind of putting out there?
Yeah, for sure. It's the beauty of our job, I guess, is that we really could just pick up and be remote. And it doesn't really, like, there's so many people out there. I mean, I don't know what percentage of the workforce, it's a huge percentage of the workforce that can't. They either have to be at their job, like, dentists to, anybody who works in a retail store. So we're very fortunate in that way. And, hopefully we could do whatever we can to help those businesses, those people. I know a lot of you have posted on social media, Facebook and so forth, that, you're paying people for things that, maybe have house cleaning, and you're paying people ahead of time saying, and I know you can't come to my house, but I'm going to go ahead and pay you for that. So it's nice to see if you do that. I know some SEOs have said that they had clients prepay them ahead in advance several months because they have the cash on hand and they know there's a long-term project and they want to go ahead and do that project. So it's nice to see a lot of people being so supportive of each other. So let's move on to the next topic. Let's go into, I'm curious. I mean, so Daniel, you told me like the people you work with, your team, the Google, what do they call them now? The Google search developer, search relations.
Search relations, yeah.
That's the new name. It used to be Google Webmaster Trends Analyst, right?
Yes, WTA.
Okay, who made that? Was that you who made the name change?
No.
Okay, can we blame Gary for that?
And no, I can blame John for that.
John, okay, so it's John's idea. Anyway, how's the team doing? You said you're seeing them a lot more often these days.
So yeah, so there are like different. So I'm kind of part of the search. Well, I am part of the search relations team. That's my team. but I work within the Search Console team in Tel Aviv. So there is like different things happening. The search relations team, as you know, like we travel a lot. So we're always traveling to events, and like that's a significant change in our lifestyles. And now we're kind of focusing more on internal stuff right now. And we have actually been meeting quite often, almost every day, and we're like the whole team, and we're just hanging out and talking about work, about life and stuff. And it's been an interesting change in the dynamics. So we're kind of I think most of us are, or all of us, we're enjoying that. So that's pretty interesting. And each one, and the search relations team, each one has like different projects or different areas that we focus. And as opposed to the Search Console team, which is kind of more a group working on a product. And we have been working from home for, as I mentioned at the beginning, for about 10 days. And I guess, I mean, there are the first, well, Google has been since the very first like start of this thing. They have been, you know, prioritize your health, prioritize your family, do whatever it takes. And just, I mean, it's not, yay, vacation for everyone. It's like, if you need to be with your family, be with your family. I mean, work will deal with it. And I think that, you know, a lot of people, definitely here in Israel, we don't have schools anymore. So kids are at home, and parents, you know, they have to be with the kids most of the day, and they work as much as they can throughout the day, during the night. So we have many meetings at night. And I have the feeling that it's not, I mean, it is affecting because we are working a bit less, but I think things are moving pretty fast, and I do see that people are taking super interesting initiatives. And well, I've been working almost 100% of my time on Corona-related stuff. So there are loads of initiatives at Google, which is really interesting to see. So as part of the, you know, search engineering team, we kind of see what's going on and try to understand what are all the initiatives, how they align, and just like a few of them, just to mention, like, so there are kind of lots of things happening at Google related to COVID. And so there are stuff focusing on the end users. There's stuff focusing on health organizations or government agencies, and there's stuff focusing on webmasters. So end users, we have stuff like the SOS alerts in search. We have, there's a new COVID-19 page, so google.com/COVID-19 with alerts, resources and stuff. There is Hangouts Meet available to all G Suite clients, and there is a lot of stuff happening in terms of fighting misinformation, both on YouTube, on Google Ads. So kind of the trust and safety team at Google has been working really hard on fighting misinformation. And when it comes to you know, health organizations, we have a very close contact with organizations like the World Health Organization. So you've seen the card, like the SOS card, right? So we have a crisis response team that is always focusing on crises that happen around the world. And this time is kind of, they're scaling it because there has never been like a crisis throughout the planet. So they're kind of working really hard, those people. And there is stuff with the YouTube homepage. There is like Google is donating ad credit to the World Health Organization, other stuff. And when it comes to webmasters, there is the, well, I hope you all saw the event stuff. So we just, so the team has been working really hard to make that happen. And there was a change in the schema.org. Dan Brickley from the search team, he published on the schema.org blog, and then Google updated so the developer documentation. We published a blog post. Now there is also a message on Search Console. If you have events markup, and you go to the events report, the enhancement report, you'll see a note that we now have new properties. So right now you can add. So if there is a change in the event, so for example, if it's now an online event or if it was postponed or canceled, so you can actually update the schema and let Google know what's the most accurate stuff. So those are the things that are happening, and there is a whole lot of stuff still kind of being worked on, and that has been my focus on the last at least 10 days. In the last 2 weeks, I've been kind of working on those kind of initiatives internally, and it's pretty interesting to see like how the organization is fitting itself to the new reality. And I think, as far as I can see, and I've been meeting a lot with people from Mountain View, from New York, and I mean, people are working. I said in the beginning, you know, my kind of this blurring between weekends and weekdays and days and nights, right? And kids are around, kids are not around. You have, so there is a, but I do see that one, people, they are doing their jobs, and two, there is a lot of people that want to help. And as I'm kind of working on some initiatives, and I heard someone from one of the executives saying that right now there are more hands, which is something that is kind of rare at Google, is that there are more hands to help you than you can use them, which is kind of a rare thing. Usually you have to fight for resources and people to work on their projects and everything. So now it's really like, if you have an initiative that's kind of going forward, it's not easy. Obviously, when there are like many initiatives, you have to align all of them and kind of merge some of them and stuff like that. But basically, people are working, and I think it's kind of going well. I don't know. I feel very lucky to be part of the team, as you said, like being able to continue doing your job while like things are just like going crazy around. It's really
Right.
Yeah.
No, and you see it. I mean, you see people from your team specifically, even over the weekends, you know, trying to help out as much as they can, because there's no business. They know businesses are going through tough times. You know, people are going through tough times, so it's really appreciated. Which brings me to my next thing. I posted this poll based off of some complaints in the different SEO forums about Google should really not push out algorithm updates these days, because I guess if a site gets hit, it causes more stress.
Yeah.
But I mean, from what I've heard, and I mean, me personally, I think everything should be as normal as possible. Google should continue to try to improve stuff. I know John Mueller responded to that saying, if we could continue to improve stuff, we should. Things should go on. And same thing with Bing. Bing said the same thing. But I mean, I wonder if anybody in the SEO side here think.
I mean, the results were 58-42, right?
Yeah, it's pretty mixed.
Yeah, it's not a huge. I was expecting that people would be more like, no, we don't want updates.
I don't know. I was
yeah.
It depends on how you're ranking right now, right? So
yeah, exactly.
but I'm curious from the SEO side. Is it you? I guess go down the line. Alexis, would you like to see Google put a pause on anything, or just keep going as is?
I don't think they should pause anything, only because, you know, we're all here, we're all doing work, we're getting stuff done, so they should as well. You know, if there's any place that we could have better results or better snippets or better whatever, they should definitely feel free to work on that in advanced search, even despite the fact that we're in a pandemic.
Right. Lily?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, as Daniel mentioned, like Google's doing a lot to fight misinformation, and that's just going to continue to happen, I imagine, over the next few months. So, of course, if Google finds ways to improve the quality of the results to reduce misinformation, then they should continue rolling out those updates.
And Pedro, we all know how much you love Google updates and talking about them.
I agree with what others said, and we have seen the toll that this kind of freeze it's almost a code freeze, but for humans. It's like, look how Facebook stopped moderation, and they of things that usually would go into the world, and they even had problems with people trying to post information regarding this pandemic from trustworthy places, but there was some kind of bug that could not be solved because people were remote. So if people stop working, ultimately systems are going to fail at some point, and if there's no one there to do these improvements, then we are just going to implode, and we don't want to do that. We want to maintain what can be maintained. Please, let's maintain it, but we should not stop just because other parts cannot move ahead.
Well, there are some areas that Google has stopped, not on the search team, I don't believe, but at least with Google My Business, there's somebody asked the question, Google's suddenly rejecting posts on Google My Business. So it's not just Google Posts, it's also reviews. Google said we're going to hold off on reviews, we're going to hold off on Q&A. So Google has stopped some things around that.
Yeah, but that's kind of fair, no?
I think it's fair because a lot of the businesses who might not be able to deliver might get a bad review or whatever it might be. So I definitely see that to be fair. But it's just, there's different things that are going on. So that's one of the topics there. Another topic I thought was interesting is how Bing is really pushing for SEOs and webmasters and site owners to actually push content to them using either the URL indexing API, or something that's really in beta right now is this content submission API. And Google also has a URL submission indexing API, but it's only used for like job postings and live streams. But Bing seems to be all in when it comes to telling webmasters, give us your content. It's more efficient for you to push the content to us versus us to crawl and fetch that content. So I'm not going to ask Daniel what he thinks about that, because obviously Google's actions are their actions. And I know I asked John Mueller about that a couple of times, so I'm not going to put you on the hot seat. But let's start with a former Googler, Pedro, to say, if you had to put your Google hat on, what is Google thinking? Or you can take it off and then talk.
I don't know. I think this it's a topic that deserves some discussion. Yes, and I might have a point of view now. I might change it later, and I think that's just normal as we gather more information. But I think, and if you think the evolution of the HTTP protocol and all of those, we had HTTP 1, now we are HTTP 2, which handles stuff in parallel, and ultimately everything is migrating more towards push than towards requests or GET. So it kind of makes sense. We have to see how much that affects infrastructure of companies, but I think it gives you more power in which information you deliver to Google, because before you would wait for Google to come and to crawl everything regardless. And if we move towards this model where you push to Google what you want, you might have more control over what gets indexed, and you might be able to save more resources and do a better job. Of course, the other side is that the burden is going to fall on you, like to be able to push these things to Google. But I think it's like we shouldn't immediately discard or without even trying first what this new technology brings. But if you see, we kind of have this kind of reaction with everything that Google pushed. You can see AMP, how it kind of it's loved and hated, like it's a love and hate relationship.
Right.
And I understand the hate and I understand the love. I understand both sides. And it's gonna be the same with all new disruption, with all new technology. But that's the way we advance. That's the way we evolve our things, and we shouldn't reject it right out of the bat.
Cool. Has anybody actually here implemented any of the new Bing APIs for their clients? Maybe Lily?
We have for a couple of ours. I'd have to circle back with my team to see what they think about it, but I know we've done it for a couple clients. And then we've done the Google one as well for like publisher clients.
Alexis?
We've done the URL, but I haven't seen the content submission API. It's a pretty neat feature that they're adding there.
Yeah, I think it's a very limited beta, just with like a few people, including LinkedIn, which is a company Microsoft owns. It's basically, you don't even have to submit a URL. You just submit your content, and you know, Microsoft trusts that it's the content that your users could see.
Yeah, that's super neat.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I don't know if anybody's done a test. Maybe it's a test that Merkle wants to do. Is like, all right, who's going to index it faster? Google by just using their crawler, or Bing through the URL submission API?
Yeah, and I guess you could complicate that too, because like you can submit URLs through GSC, or you could also submit URLs through like adding a sitemap and then submitting it through GSC, or pinging a sitemap. So
yeah, for me, it would be like, I should probably just compare like some news sites that I have. Like when I don't submit anything to Google, it just picks it up within seconds on my sites. And then I do submit to Bing using the API. So I should really compare to see how fast it works.
Remember in the past, there was this SubHub that people would use to push content to Google. Still there. So I think it's a very early stage of that. And Google still has that indexing API, no?
Yeah, they have the index API, but it's only used for 2 areas right now. Yeah. Maybe we should just run through some of these questions quickly, and whoever wants to answer them, feel free to just yell out. All right. From the Google search update from September 2019 decimated our US history website. Google search rankings and traffic approximately down by 2/3. There was no change. At Bing, we're doing fine. Have you seen this disconnect in other sites? Seems like they got hit by a Google update, right?
I briefly looked at that site.
And
honestly, I found it very, very overwhelmed with ads. It was like not a site that I would trust first sight if I would parachute into that site as a result. And it seems mainly driven for ads. There's a very poor navigation. It broke a few times when I tried to navigate through it. So I don't know. It seems there's a lot of homework to be done there before you blame Google updates for what happened.
Yeah, and I remember during that update, I remember seeing some fluctuations in that category. So like childhood education was definitely something that was impacted. There were a couple of sites, this might even be one of them, I don't know the domain name, but it was interesting, as Pedro mentioned, like usability and trustworthiness, I think is really important, especially if you're providing like children with educational information online. So some of the sites that I remember doing better weren't out there for like advertising purposes. They were like legitimate like education websites that like if you're going to talk about World War II, it was like a 3,000 word article about the entire history of World War II, and it almost looked like a teacher had written it. And I remember some sites like that had seen some increases during that update. So it could just be that Google's prioritizing stuff that's coming from real people with, you know, history backgrounds and not necessarily companies that are out there trying to make money off ads.
all right.
Yeah, I think probably, as Pedro said, the 8 to 10 ads on the page may be contributing to this.
Without the tabula, without counting the tabula.
Yeah, it's also like, I mean, that affects site speed in so many ways too. And like having all this like, you know, outbrain type stuff kind of, it may not look like some of the other history sites that Google is considering to be credible. And so when they're analyzing it, they may say like, hey, like this doesn't look right. So
all right, let's move on to a schema question. Schema.org, while an impressive set of standards, can often update slowly and tries to fit it in. Sometimes you try to fit it into specific categories that doesn't really fit. This makes for a frustrating work for SEOs trying to fill in a vaguely relevant content just to eliminate warnings in Google Search Console. Would Google ever consider publishing guidelines around where their view of structured data differs from schema.org? or share how they think about valid versus with warnings, or compared to valid in terms of just understanding SEO in general. I don't know if it's a question for Daniel, but
I mean, we always say that, you know, all the schema that we work with is on the developer documentation, right? So the developer documentation is there are other stuff on schema.org, but the stuff that we, I forgot the word in English, that we support is what we publish on the dev side. I mean, there could be a comparison between what's available on schema.org and what's available on dev side. I don't know if we should do that, but I mean, it's very clear that the official stuff that we support is on the dev side. Now, in terms of the warnings on Search Console, it's also something we know that people cannot solve all the warnings and errors, and it's not that, I mean, you have to solve, they're not, I know that maybe just bothers the eyes of people, that, you know, they're looking and there are those warnings that they cannot solve and they cannot dismiss, but it's just like they are warnings and errors that we see. And I mean, if there should be a button to archive warnings, I don't know, dismiss warnings, I don't know, that's what, I mean, what would you suggest? I mean, if there is a warning that is on Google Search Console, what would you like to do with it if you can't solve it?
Ignore it.
Alexis, I can see you have an opinion, a strong opinion about.
No, I mean, no, I agree with you completely. Like, the documentation clearly outlines everything that Google supports. So usually what I do is I'll just look up Google event schema. You can really pick any one that you know Google supports, pull up the documentation, look at all the data types on the right-hand rail, and then you have all that information there of what they support. If you wanted to look at the full schema.org, I would just look at schema.org full hierarchy, and you'll get a list of everything that is out there in schema world, but maybe might not being used by anybody at Google. I agree that it kind of sucks when you can't solve some of the warnings. So it could be nice to have like an ignore feature, but maybe for now, for the person that asked it, just have like a mental ignore for those, any ones that you know you can't fix. So just use it to, you know, be as something to be aware of, but, you know, not something that you have to stress out about.
I think Google forgets that they are dealing with a bunch of people that have real OCD things. I think for myself, you know, and sometimes you just want to say, I know about this, leave me alone. I want it to be like this, just, you know. So 100%. Yeah, you are. SEOs have like OCD by default. I think I speak for a bunch of them.
It's also like scary because I think there's like an exclamation point inside of a triangle, and when you see that, you're like, whoa, like something's wrong, like I blew it up, I missed something. But it's like, it's just a warning, like everything's fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like a lot of the times you'll see, like, let's say you're pitching a client and they got a report from another SEO agency that they're talking to, and it's like, oh, you have X warnings in Google Search Console or the structured data testing tool. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have warnings. It's like the word warning is just inherently scary. So maybe they could relax the messaging a little bit at Google. Just to leave you. What's more dental than warnings? I don't know. Maybe just some messaging about I think it says this, but like warnings are not something that's going to prevent your schema from being displayed properly or whatever. But
yeah, also
warning.
You can also check in the rich snippets testing tool to see if stuff shows up, or search it in Google, and that's probably the best way to check if a snippet's showing up. It's not showing up for you, it's probably not showing up for anybody else. I'm looking at this though, Daniel.
Rich results.
So just you know, pare it down a little bit so that you can. Sorry, kids are on. New lifestyle here.
Keeping it real. Keeping it real.
5 kids, very.
Somebody let them upstairs. Anyway, gonna have to close this out soon. But there was a bunch of other questions out there, and I'm not gonna go into all of them. We covered pretty much most of them. Some of them are pretty funny, which I'll probably skip over for now. We only have a few more minutes left. I just wanted to like wish everybody, you know, stay safe, keep sane, and thank you so much for doing this. Any advice for how to just keep sane while you're at home with 100 kids that you could give me?
Maybe you should tell us, Mary.
How are you staying sane, Barry?
Thankfully, it is what it's good. It's good to have so many kids around. So,
Who said he's sane? I don't
who says I'm
understand.
sane, right? It's true. Are any of us really sane to be in this world of Google and SEO? I don't know.
Repress demand. No, to be insane. I have 2 here, and I know how it is. But they are in their room right now.
Yeah, they want me to open up some food for them. So I'll probably go ahead and do that now. At least they didn't run behind me and like have to drag them out of the room or something like that. So that's pretty good. I'm going to have to get a new setup here. But I guess there's a lot of people in the SEO industry that are really good at working remotely, working from home, and I'm seeing a lot of them sharing tips and advice around that. So I'll be keep reading that and I keep sharing that as well. And hopefully you could all learn a little bit from them, and hopefully this thing will settle down sooner than later. Just so you guys know, there will be another live with Search Engine Land coming up, I think next week or end of this week, with Greg Sterling on the local side. And feel free to stay tuned for that. This was not live broadcast to anybody outside of the, I think, Third Door Media domain. I don't think, looking at it now, I don't think you could do that. But it is being recorded, and we will go ahead and post this on our YouTube channel and share it on the Search Engine Land blog. Thank you so much to everybody who participated in this and submitted the questions, and to all our live guests. Thank you so much. Be well, be healthy, and thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you for organizing it.
Thank you.